This is the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Matt. In this podcast, we're going to discuss growing companies, automation and manufacturing,
and how we're building the lives and businesses we want to see in the world.
All right. Well, let's get right into it. How are, general feelings of the week for Michael?
Oh my God, we're busy. There's been a lot of, especially with my honeymoon and being short-staffed, going from working on the business consistently to being in the business, which I think a lot of people talk very negatively about. But man, has it let me clean up a lot of things I didn't like. And it's kind of taking me through a spiral where I guess I am
Up or
working on the
down?
business by working in the business, finding the issues. I think both.
Okay.
It's a struggle. And I'm seeing our revenue shrink a little bit because of it, and I'm forcing myself to be like, okay, I'm okay with this. The point is that we're getting more efficient, that things get easier, and that we have a culture shift towards don't leave stuff wherever.
Yeah. It's not always about the top line. Everybody's always chasing the top line number. If nothing's ever hitting the bottom line so you can build that cash cushion back or have it for growing the business, it's a fool's errand.
Yeah. I've definitely been stressed. I'm like a little sick too. Trying to force myself to work like 50, 55 hours a week. Like I'm, in the office Saturday. I was going to come in even if we didn't do the pod. A lot of that's just not having a machinist. And now we have 3 intraload installs back to back to back that we need machine parts for. So it's like, well, everyone else is slammed with work orders. So, I'm taking a step back from sales and marketing and, pushing on that front.
Sounds like that's what's needed for the business. So get it done, right?
Yeah. And that's also resulted in me seeing just how broken our machining department is in terms of just lack of standardized tooling, where stuff, the flow through the department, we kind of move stuff to U-shaped cells, put fusion computers at every single CNC machine. There's just a lot that I guess I have been working on the business from working in it, actually hearing myself talk.
That's why we do the pod, so we can both reflect and chat about these things together.
Cool. What about you? What's the last week felt like? I guess 2 weeks, huh?
Yeah, you're right. It has been 2 weeks. I hadn't even reflected on the last 2 weeks. I really just reflected on this last week, which was on the road to Detroit at a trade show called Automate. My feelings of the week are just like grateful for my team's passion and dedication is really the best way to put it, because I was out of the office. The team was able to get a machine buttoned up that's ready to ship out now. It'll be getting delivered this coming week to a customer. We also had another customer on site for kind of an impromptu just check-in. We're building a very big machine for them. We're coming up like in 3 weeks. We're doing a sign off on a big gate, and they just wanted to come in and see how things were progressing just in general. Meeting went really well because we were ahead of schedule on proof of concept with the robot. It was picking and placing their product. Like, just really cool to see the team being able to do that. And then while we're at the show, the team members that I was there with, like, just level of passion for growing the business. Like, they went around, walked around of like things they want to do differently, and like angry or like frustrated with like some of the pains we've had is like a one way to put it, but it was just like the passion to like, I want to make this better, Matt. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then like when we got back to the Airbnb or VRBO is what it was, like it was the same thing on the sales process. They saw the pains that I was dealing with, and they're just like, this is bullshit. Like, we got to change some of this, the way you're like manually just doing tasks. So we can get into some of those improvements later, but it was just, it's really cool to see our team, how cohesive we are and growth minded.
Yeah. And, for us, we went through that little period of shrinkage, when we lost, when that one major manufacturing client had some financial problems. And, in hindsight, I'm so grateful for it. Like, it was very painful, but it did lead to me like laying off all the people who didn't give a shit about the company and didn't care about what we were doing. And, later when we drew kind of the line in the sand of like, okay, like show up on time or else. And then, we dropped another 2 employees, like we got down just to the people who cared, and like the culture shift from, having gotten rid of everyone who wasn't passionate has been huge. And it's also made it easier to recruit better people.
Yeah. A good team drives each other and also picks each other up when they're struggling.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
So, all right. Well, that's kind of a good segue into sales and marketing. Maybe not.
I'll let you start, because you definitely have more here.
a week in automate. I mean, this is the show that Develop kind of thrives on, if you will. We do this every year. It's our biggest trade show. We've been sprinkling in some other ones that are showing some interesting metrics. So I'm going to see how those start progressing over the next couple of years here. But Automate's always been the big one for us. There was 3 of us at the show. Top number of leads we've ever seen coming out of it. I think it just more or less our processes are honed in. We knew how to show up. We knew what questions to ask. We knew how to engage with customers. We had training SOPs, and everybody that was at the show knew how to execute those things. Just flawlessly is maybe not the right word, but just like knew how to go about it. And then if there was questions, how to also address them. So that was really exciting. We left with the highest number of potential or 5 stars we call leads from a show. We broke 100, which is, we set a benchmark of always trying to hit 75 from a show like this. So that was really exciting. We actually sold one automation assessment right on the floor. So that's a first. So invoice was sent that night and scheduled for actually a month from today. So that was pretty cool to see that. And I guess I owe you a thank you there, because we put the proven process right on the back of our brochures too, kind of last minute. It was a fire drill, Vistaprint change order, if you will. Game changer. It just showed people like, hey, you need to do 1 through 3 if you're wanting an automation assessment. At that point, you're going to know whether you're going to build a machine or machine building just isn't right. Either way, investing this capital is a risk mitigator, and having that proven process was just liberating, I guess, in the sales.
It's so powerful. And I think for a long time we had kind of a shitty one. Like it could still use some improvements, but just a visual of like A to B to C to D, like this is what, the service business does. And you stop getting the questions of how does this work? How does that work? How does this work?
Yeah.
I still wish I would have used ChatGPT like you did to clean the whole thing up instantly, but
Well, ChatGPT has come a long way. You did yours over a year ago. It might have shit the bed trying to do it.
That's one thing I'm just so behind the ball on is anything AI, like Fixer's great, it's a great little email tool, but that's like all I do.
Okay.
With the exception of like when I've done little R&D G-code stuff, I'll use AI to write the first draft, which it'll hallucinate and mix Python in with G-code, but it figures out the actual difficult bits. But other than that, I really need to utilize just AI in general more.
Yeah, that was the pain that our team member saw. Brandon, actually, he saw how I was manually taking all the leads from the show that we scanned, and then I would drop them into ChatGPT and automate like this same process. He's like, well, we can take that entire front section that you're doing where you're copying these notes in. And he's like, I can just do your mass rev 1 for every single lead we have from the show. 5-star to 1-star, it doesn't matter. I can drop them in and do it. So he's already exported all those. We've sent all our 5 stars. We'll get through the 4 stars this week. And just that, that ends up being a minute for every lead. So that's hours just added right there. And he wrote it as a fun software program at night. And then we had to buy the ChatGPT API to link them. But he just wrote it when we got back from the show one night. He's like, I'll just do it for fun.
Yeah, those are the guys you want working for you.
So
yeah,
go ahead.
I have this AI kind of dream, and I don't know how far this is off, but one of my major pain points right now is quotes. Because my bias has just become like, you talk to a customer, you make a quote. Like I don't care, there's a pay now button. You make there as little friction as possible between creating the quote and closing a deal. And a lot of the time, not a lot of the time, but 10-15% of the time, what you thought was a dead lead will just pay a quote. And the issue is the friction of going through HubSpot, clicking all the things, editing it. What I wish is that I could just, go into ChatGPT or some kind of AI thing and just be like, hey, I need a quote for this customer that has an M-Code air kit, a through spindle air gripper, and it knew the prices. And I know I could make one spit out a normal invoice or a normal quote. That's just a form. But the issue is it doesn't have that HubSpot pay now button. And
can you copy and paste quickly into HubSpot from Word?
The issue is you have to select the product. And that's kind of the challenge.
Okay.
So you're selecting line items, and I haven't really looked into, HubSpot to see what their AI tools are. I imagine at our $600-700 a month tier that if there is anything, it's not integrated in.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder if there's a third-party integration thing that would do that.
Probably. I haven't looked into it. That's on my list as well, as to figure out how to automate more of our sales process. My pain's definitely different than yours because ours are so custom.
Right.
Where like right now it's using ChatGPT just to define our modules and systems within a machine. Like we got one I quoted while we were on the show or at the show. Uh, it's roughly $1.5 million machine, but it was like there's a lot of weird variables from vision to flipping of the part just to manage the QC side of it that we really haven't done as a team. And it was like, what are the pitfalls? What are the risks to this? And I just kept asking it questions. And it was like, oh, I actually hadn't thought of that, but that's a real thing that we need to put in here. And then by the time we got to some team members start reading it, it's far better than a Rev 1 typically. And it has the details that shows its customer. So that's something I've seen for the custom side, which is really cool.
Yeah. And just a random segue or tangent, really. If you need a pneumatic part flipper, we make one. We sell a lot into the robot industry. Quick Flip 180. Anyways,
Is that just an ad?
Yeah, that was just an ad. That was an ad for you personally. Anyways, we sell a lot of these into the robot industry, and it's like this, and you're like, oh, flip the part. And I'm like, I want to see that part. Like, I bet we could flip it. Because it's
large
never mind
chunk of aluminum.
I saw your hands, and I'm like, okay, we can't flip that.
Out of the mic. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I didn't correlate the flipping part because I'm thinking like giant plate. Yeah, otherwise I would have plugged you for sure. I was so confused.
Sorry about that.
No, don't be. It's great. I got some good laughs in.
But yeah, like I think that for me is a big place that I could have like a better focus with AI. Because it's not hard. Like there's defined line items with defined prices. I just want to type in a paragraph what I want and have a quote generated. And I think that's a starting point. And Priscilla knows a lot more than I do, so I should probably check with her and see what she thinks of my idea here.
There's got to be something there. If not, I bet there's got to be an API or a way you could pay like somebody from Upwork to create that specifically for you, I believe. Because
yeah,
I mean, Brandon wrote maybe not quite as complex as that, but it's linking all the tags and checkboxes from when we scan somebody at a show. So there's a decent amount of variables that he was managing there, and then links that he was putting in the quote or in the email, and then the personalized level that he saw that I was doing for those emails. So the variables might be kind of similar. So there's got to be an API where you could just link that HubSpot. The thing you'd have is you'd have two links. So you'd have to have your software going to HubSpot and your software going to a ChatGPT agent to manage it. But I don't know.
It's definitely doable. It's just like I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And even the idea of like finding an Upworker, like God, I know how much effort it is to find a truly excellent Upworker. That's always the challenge.
Yeah.
It's just like finding an employee, but then they're working on multiple projects. Okay, not quite that bad. But do you want to talk more? I guess I took us down this AI quoting rabbit hole. Do you want to talk more about general sales and marketing, other than? You got into a little bit of automate stuff.
Yeah, that was really the extent of it. It's I guess I have one question from the show because we're just like beyond frustrated with trucking in and out of the show because, like, oh my gosh, like it's not a big deal. Like I don't mind rigging, I don't mind trucking. I despise unions. Like I guess I'll put that on the record. Like,
yeah, I will too.
Just like the goal of just getting in the way of progress is like just yanks my chains. Like we were trying to move out on Friday and we go to the marshaling yard and they're like, yeah, we're just not going to let anybody move out today. It's like, what? Like paperwork says we can move out today, but you've just decided we can't move out because what?
Yeah. And then on every flipping show, there's always like these bullshit costs.
Oh yeah.
Of like, it was supposed to be $4,500 to ship it in an hour or whatever. And it, somehow it's $7,500. And there's some BS fees and it just feels like kind of just random corruption with these shows of like, you're going to get charged all this money for all this random stuff and no one's going to tell you about it.
Yeah. So we ended up pushing. So I was like, we're not staying here another day, guys. So I'm leaving the marshaling yard. I call the team up that's at the show. I'm like, we're going out the front door. So we push the MRS down the side. So
good for you.
Yeah, modular mobile robot down the sidewalk. I wish I got a video of it. And we loaded the thing right on the street. Union just yelling at us. Like, I'm getting out.
Yeah. Good for you. I mean, that's so obnoxious. And we try to we're going to West Tech in September, and we try to, we got the pricing for the show, and like, okay, we paid the deposit on that or whatever. I'm like, hey, I need to know how much it costs to move the stuff in. And, then they're like, oh, you got to talk to these people. We can't tell you anything. There's an agreement where we can't even tell you how much it's supposed to cost. We talk to those people. We can't even get a number.
Yeah.
And I'm like, screw it. We're just going to roll the stuff in and we'll be yelled at or whatever. And they can fine us. The fines are going to be less than whatever ridiculous amount.
Yeah, we've done that. It seems like every time we're moving out, like I've done it with pallet jacks. We always take a pallet jack with when we move out at Chicago. We got fined like $1,600 one time, and then we just like argued it because there was nobody there to help us. And then they ended up like it was like an hour worth of arguing, and they just gave us our money back.
Well, one thing that's really weird is we used this third-party shipping for IMTS last year. They just now invoiced us.
Holy crap.
And I was like, what the hell? Like, I assumed we had to have double paid it or something, right?
Yeah.
That they were double charging us, and we search, and there's no charge. And I was like, oh my God, how did they let it go from, when we purchased this in like July or whatever to now? Well, part of it's a little bit frustrating because like I don't like when things mess with my P&L, right? Like when this cost should have been here, and then there's just some random cost over here. It annoys me because like I want to look at everything on a cash basis.
I see.
Month to month.
Who'd you use for trucking?
DSV, I think. No, it was just some service that just handled it all. It was pretty decent pricing. I was just shocked at the incompetence of their accounting team.
Yeah, because that's what we're gonna. I don't know if I've noted that we're going to Pack Vegas is getting added to the list is what we're leaning towards, and so we got to figure out how to truck in and out of there.
Yeah,
I might have to email you that offline, figure out who you used or who you might recommend, because I've never had good luck with
that company. Did a great job. It's just they invoiced us, comically late. I got a couple of like random questions. Like, are you still doing the email drip campaigns? Are you still doing? You're still not doing really any PPC a little bit?
So first the drip campaigns, yes, definitely. We're actually building out a whole new master workflow, if you will. So it's going to be all of our verticals, everything kind of encompassing with a focus, like kind of the 80 focus on automation.
Yep.
And the goal is to send any lead that comes in through that workflow so they can see the other things that Develop offers, because the real power of Develop is not just automation, not just embedded hardware. It's the full ecosystem of not having to outsource. So the goal is to get that workflow going. We're probably going to be launching that in about 4 to 6 weeks once it gets all built out and through editorial. And then the PPC side, the only spot we're running ads anymore is LinkedIn. We went down the Google ads. I guess occasionally we toss some stuff to Instagram to boost a post that's new just to kind of see, but where we're spending to try and get leads is LinkedIn.
When did that shift occur? Like, when did you start using LinkedIn ads?
We started, I'd say 2 to 3 months ago.
Yep. And have you had a lead convert from?
We've had a couple leads come in. Nothing's converted yet.
Yep.
Nothing crazy good either.
Well, I guess that was another thing to ask. Like, what's your ballpark spend with LinkedIn?
I believe we're right around $1,200 a month right now.
Okay. Yep.
So pretty light. It's more or less just in a testing phase right now to prove some stuff out. We're also needing a little bit better ad copy that's specific to LinkedIn. So testing how that's accepted, video, photo. Like our ebook does really well on LinkedIn. Like people tend to want to download it, but those people don't convert into leads. Like we've had large Fortune 500 companies. I look up the people that are downloading. It's like, yeah, you're the job title I'm trying to talk to, but I can't get them on the phone. I can't get into an email. Like they just download it and read it or something. I don't know.
Yep. And so one of the things I've struggled with historically that I think has gotten better more recently, I've talked about this undulation in our revenue with our execution, right? Where I feel like I have a sine wave and a cosine wave where, whenever our revenue is high, that's marketing. And that means our execution isn't as good because I'm not on the floor. And that has mostly gone away as I've just kind of dialed in on sales. And that combined with the tariffs, just kind of, blew up the automation side of our business in a way that became so problematic. I had to pull back from sales, pull down our marketing budgets, and focus on execution. And I guess maybe there's not a good answer here, but I'm trying to figure out a way just to smooth that out Even when Michael isn't available. Because that's one of my big challenges right now is keeping the inbound when I'm not pushing it, when I'm not doing Instagram, when I'm not,
Yeah.
curating newsletters.
Yeah. I guess to kind of call back on some themes that we've been talking about is lean processes or the Toyota way. What you're talking about is leveling your workload.
Yep.
So you always have blocked off, because this is actually something I was going to bring up for a topic on company-wide improvements for us. But to focus on you is, how do we level out your workload so it's not 100% or 100%? Now, it's not going to probably
Yep.
happen overnight because you've got the bullwhip effect, if you will, that's still playing out. So over time, how do you cascade that? And something that I've found works really well for me is saying, all right, every Monday through Wednesday, I am focusing on, for the first, from when I show up till lunch, all I'm
Hmm.
doing is sales calls. That's it.
Yep.
Uh, and then Thursday, what I'm doing from morning till lunch, all I'm doing is marketing stuff. And that's it. And then Friday, it's focusing on team processes and gains.
Hmm.
Now, what I've done is, as load changes, my priorities might shift, because for me personally, in the morning is when I'm the most efficient. When I show up to noon, if I want to crank
Right.
through
Yep.
stuff and really focus, that's when my brain capacity is the highest. And then in the afternoon is kind of that ancillary stuff that needs to get done, but it just has to wait. Like, I've gotten to the point where I used to always want to clean inbox right away in the morning. That's not the
Hmm.
thing anymore. I don't do that. While I still have Fixer, the only thing I focus on in the morning is if it's sales related in my inbox. Everything else, it's gonna wait. And
Yep.
it's been a really tough mind shift for me to do that, but it's been really empowering, I guess. I don't even know when I really started it, but that might be something to try doing yourself, is how do you slowly level that out? Like, all right, I'm gonna for sure do
Right.
Thursday morning but my goal is to get to doing XYZ focused on sales and marketing a week.
Yeah. And I've noticed I really struggle to task switch. It's like, I kind of feel like I'm playing machinist today, or for the last week. And that's easy. But then it's hard for me to like pull back, say, okay, at lunch, now I'm in sales because that's what the business needs.
Okay. Well, I think I don't think you're out of the norm there at all, because
Yeah.
the reason I do it at noon is it's a hard switch.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's a completely different task. And so maybe you're just a full day. You're going to say,
Yeah.
all right, all I'm going to, for me, I have ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it, where, like,
Yeah.
for me to focus on one thing for that period of time sometimes can be difficult for me. So I actually like the switch.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm focused, I'm really focused. The problem is like I can get too all in, and that's a pretty consistent issue. But anyways, I think with marketing in general, I just have to be honest with myself and realize, hey, there's this one position or one problem, which is I've grown the company. I've changed what are doing, so I have to be honest that, hey, like gimbal automation is still like relatively immature. We've been here for 2.5 years, and I think we've done a lot in that time. But I have to be honest about that fact, and like that we're still kind of figuring everything out and really getting into our stride. And with that growth and with that change came a huge capital expense. And I think that's causing a lot of, negative behaviors from me, because as I get nervous, as our cash position, gets smaller than I would like, what do? I pound the phones, right? And I make the money come. And guess what? I do it too much. And then we can't execute. I'm like you said, leveling the workload. And I need to do that in both places.
Yeah,
And,
I totally feel you there as a small business. That, again, I think that's a common theme, is it's feast or famine. It's kind of like farming, is when the hay's out there to be made, we want to make it all that day.
mhm. Like to be fair too, like I kind of put myself in this position. I grew too fast, ignoring a lot of people telling me that. I've done a lot of stupid shit over time. I bought an airplane at one point, the metal 3D printing project, and the and I'm trying to stay comfortable where we are and level the workload, but I need to. I haven't been pushing enough on marketing over the last 2-3 weeks, and that's something that's a problem.
I think you're being too hard on yourself about the air quotes stupid decisions you've made. I think because I've looked back on things like that I've done on that, and it's like, I wouldn't have known certain things had I not done those things.
Mhm.
Like, you have the
Yeah.
bias because of them now, or you have knowledge that you learned. So I wouldn't consider them stupid decisions, Michael. I think you were just learning at the pace you needed to.
Mhm. Yeah, like kind of weirdly enough, my dad started his own business far, far after I had started mine. And it, every once in a while we'll talk about something business related, and I'll tell him what I think, and I know he's going to do the stupid thing that I did, and he has to learn from the pain, um, to actually really realize it and do something differently the next time.
That's pretty. I didn't know your dad started a business. It must have been recently.
A couple years ago,
What's his business?
the oil field stuff.
Oil. Have we talked about this? Or am I?
No, not really.
Okay, what's he doing? I mean, this is a fun little pivot. I'm kind of curious now.
So they're like our one like major consulting client left. Funnily enough,
Okay.
and I didn't think it was going to turn into anybody or to anything. I was just kind of doing my dad a favor. And basically it's oil field tool development. They're essentially like it's very similar to a venture company, which is
Okay.
ironically something I want nothing to do with in terms of like running that kind of a business, constantly raising capital and dealing with all that, the stress and internal politics. But, we do a small amount of their engineering work.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I guess
And there
That's
are
gotta be-
we're down to 2 consulting clients. One of them I desperately want to drop. And then there's this other one, the company my dad is involved with, which is like our one client where I'm like, I like this because it levels our cash flow.
Yeah.
And because they actually pay us for, all of our time and aren't arguing constantly about whatever stupid, change order they wanted, like the other customer.
Yeah, I still like some T&M in. We might be swinging the needle now too far to correct for that because we've been bringing in more T&M clients, but they've all been like, we're only taking them if we think it's going to be a long-term relationship. It's not like a 3-month rush R&D project. It's like years worth of work. So we'll see how that plays out because
if they weren't like a good to great client, I wouldn't even want to hold them. Like I want to be 100% in automation long-term. I know that. It's just like, you want to smooth your cash flow and consulting is a great way to smooth those undulations.
It is. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the pain of our side of, like you said, growing fast, building multi-million-dollar machines. When we were building $100,000 machines 5 years ago, the capital to buy that many robots and hard assets in a machine has to come from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the challenge. And we also started, I think more similar to you, doing like milestone-based invoicing, which it makes it easier to close deals, which is great. But it of course is more capital intensive when, we're already fighting our way out of a cash squeeze. So that's one of the big things I think that, now that I say all this, that I've been learning is like right now I have to trust the process, trust that everything is working, be comfortable with the fact that I'm in a cash squeeze and like know that there's a plan to get out. It's like if my airplane sells, which has been taken forever, if anyone wants a small aerobatic airplane, please buy mine.
I got $20.
The about $149,000 short there.
All right,
but
I'll go sell some.
Yeah, and we have an SBA loan, but I just worry, like that's like in the closing process. It's like I just need one of these things to happen. There's a plan, and I just need to be more comfortable and stop freaking out. I think that's a big long-term thing for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I believe comfort's a silent killer. So
that's
don't get
too. Yeah,
don't get too comfortable.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing of like you have all that money in your bank account. At least as a small business for me, and this may be a lack of discipline or a lack of growth up to this point, but not having like sufficient cash is a great motivator to go and close some fucking deals. And that is one thing I kind of silently worry about in the background of like if that drive is going to diminish and if I'll see like revenue drop or maybe not seeing the growth the way we would have if that money wasn't there. But at the same time, it's like what's your willingness to have that risk exposure if XYZ happens all at the same time.
Yeah, that's always a concern. Have you gotten that line of credit in place yet?
No, I'm doing one thing at a time. So we're still in this obnoxiously long SBA closing process, which
you didn't layer you could have layered how far? Maybe it's too late now, but there's the SBA. What is it? It's not 7A. Maybe it is. I forget the exact number, but you can leverage a line of credit on that now, and they'll fund you based on that.
Gotcha.
Some of it'll depends how your bank wants to manage it. It can go straight as cash onto your books, but super low interest rate just to working capital basically.
Right.
I was evaluating it for a period of time. There's just different structures that a standard line of credit just makes more sense because For us, it's every year I want to reevaluate it and try and increase it. And that structure doesn't allow you to do this.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Those are all good questions. I think the other thing we're doing that's pretty big is just getting rid of stuff. I think you encouraged me to do that spring cleaning, but we'll talk more about that in the shop improvements section.
Perfect. Want to roll on to that or engineering and R&D?
Yeah. Yeah. Which one are we supposed to do first?
Technically engineering and R&D, but
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that works
Yeah,
for
well,
me.
let's just blast through it. Like,
Yeah.
why don't you start there?
I
There's
don't
nothing
have,
because automate.
yeah, I don't really have a whole lot other than what I kind of talked about with the team. I mean, we had a proof of concept site visit with a customer where we had stuff working when they showed up that wasn't even planned to be done by that date. The team actually hit a stretch goal internally, which was awesome because the customer just randomly was like, hey, I'm going to be around. I want to swing in. And so that was just really cool to see that. And then with being at Automate, Brandon, who I said, who's our software engineer, who's created a lot of our HMI, really all of it, he was there and able to talk to a lot of potential customers and hear what they liked and didn't like about the HMI, which
Yep.
I think was really good for him to see real world, not just Matt translating what he hears at shows. It was actually, this is how the customer feels and their perception of what's being created. I think that was really good because we're very close on a few little details that hearing that from customers was awesome to see firsthand.
Yep. Yep.
That's kind of it. It was those two big things last week. Otherwise, it was sales at the show and the team just executing on Gantt charts because we're really just trying to close out some of these things that kind of put us behind because of the pains last year.
Yeah. Not to take it back to sales and marketing, but man, I really aspire to hit the level of consistency that I think you're at in pushing on sales and marketing. Because I just go through these crazy undulations with it, and I think I got to get back to that discipline.
Yeah, I have a different challenge than you, Michael. My sales cycle is 6 months to 2 years plus. That one deal that I told you about,
Right,
that was
that's
the
true.
longest sales cycle ever. It was 5 years.
Yeah, but because our sales cycle is so much shorter, it also means if I'm not consistent, like I see it, and sure it's a lagging indicator, but it's a lagging indicator like 2 weeks. Because of that, I think it's even more important for me to stay consistent because you have much longer term, higher value projects, and I think that lends the execution being more important because obviously the project gets delayed, then the milestone gets delayed, and then the payment gets delayed, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's where the team's really been focusing on the engineering and R&D. Like what was cool is we had several people at the show asking about a machine or what our delivery schedule typically looks like. And one of the videos on the screen was a machine that we're delivering next week, and it's over 30 days ahead of schedule. And it's like being able to say, yeah, well, we're delivering that machine right there,
Yeah.
30 days ahead of schedule. That's really, really good to be able to tell that to people that are in your booth because most people are used to hearing that builders are behind schedule.
I mean, almost everything is delivered behind schedule with any kind of complex project. And that's one thing we're really working on is to stop delivering behind schedule. I mean, we've been kind of consistently 2 weeks late on our kind of $50,000 plus projects, which is upsetting to me. And, it's something we're dealing with. It's like we don't have a machinist, so we have to, either leverage our consultants or I have to get on the floor and it all subtracts from something else. And, I'm just forcing myself to deal with that pain. We have one, I think, excellent candidate. And now we're in that kind of process of like convincing him to work for us. But at the same time, like we've been looking for 3 months and I don't know, there's been 2 candidates I thought, were kind of qualified and for the position and had the right culture fit. So, I mean, that's another thing. Maybe in that spot, I just need to do more, whether it's go on LinkedIn, and Monster or increase our ad budget or whatever. Like our ad budget's even there for on Indeed and Indeed's just not spending it, which I've never seen before.
That is weird. I've never seen that.
Maybe I just need to take it down to make a new job posting. Now that
I have seen that theme. If it's been up for more than 2 weeks, I've done a repost before. I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Sorry, I was gonna say let's pull back to engineering because I keep taking us off course. But
No,
say what you're gonna say first.
I was gonna kind of swing into the company-wide improvements on your timelines. Well, let's go through R&D and then we'll swing back to that on timelines. I'll write a note here to bring.
So I guess I'll start with the kind of small thing for us, which is we have a new version of the GIMVAC coming out. I'm so excited about that. It's much, much, much smaller. We find ourselves on all kinds of turnkeys building manifolds to take that, one vacuum and split it out. So now there's a manifold built into it. We also had two versions. We had an aluminum and a stainless one, and we'd ship the aluminum one to customers with the BT30 machine. Now there's just one smaller stainless one.
Nice.
Initially too, I was like debating like, okay, we have, I don't know, 6 of these old Gimvac bodies. I can keep selling the old one. And now I'm kind of like, whatever. Like, let's just update it. Who cares about those 6? Throw them away, and move on to the better product, and play the long game. Because at the end of the day, it's a $1,300 product. Like those pieces of aluminum, what do they cost us? $75 each.
Just move on.
Make it better.
You'll spend more trying to liquidate that old inventory at a discount.
Yeah, and it's like you improve the product and make it move better and stop worrying about it.
You just described moment trading or momentum trading.
Yeah.
Cut your losses, put the money into something that's going to move in the green.
Yeah. The other thing that we did that I guess it's not really R&D, but we cut a lot of products that at your recommendation. We actually kept the pressure booster because we find that there's a fair amount of customers who actually want that or need it, and it's mostly turnkey related. I don't know, maybe it's a recent surge and we'll cut it eventually, but we've cut a lot of products. But I guess the biggest thing for us the last 2.5 weeks, we've just been busting our asses on intraload.
Nice.
We pretty much had the UMC 500 intraload 100% sorted. The UMC 750 Gen 3 intraload is almost the same. And the problem is, and I think I mentioned this, the first one that we sold, actually the second one that we sold, but the first one on the timeline was actually a local customer, which is why we agreed to do the deal on an accelerated pace. Our sales guy who I fired wasn't exactly as thorough as he should have been. Basically they said it's a 2020 machine. It was actually a 2019 machine, which is a different generation. So, we had already taken their deposit, a week and a half had already gone by, and we just made the decision. We're going to build it.
That's interesting because did he go on site to check on this, or is he supposed to get a picture of the badge?
There's a turnkey checklist that didn't get sent in.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was a process failure there.
I was going to say, because if that was something where the customer made the error, that could potentially be a cost on their side.
There were numerous reasons for firing that particular person.
No, I'm just trying to think of the customer management side of that, because you never want to charge more. You don't want to ruin the
and we didn't.
experience.
And we viewed it as an opportunity, like, hey, they have 7 of this machine. Like, presumably if it works, first off, that one customer can multiply that transaction by 7.
Yeah.
The other thing is, hey, we want to release it to this generation of machine anyways. It's just it's been a lot of work, and it means that we had a lot of R&D expense on this thing, and a lot of internal pressure on the team, including me, to figure this out on a very fast timeline.
Yeah, but that's sometimes good.
Yeah.
I like accelerated timelines, especially for Rev 1 R&D, where sometimes the hardest part is getting started because you're overthinking.
Right. And the Rev 1 R&D actually happened over the course of like 2 days. Like, I just did it. And we had the machine on our floor and it was easy. The hard part is always doing the R&D for a different generation of machine that you don't have on your floor. Right. And that was a challenge here. So I think honestly, everyone on the team is a little bit exhausted from really pushing to get this done. And then I think everyone also has the knowledge like, oh, we have 2 more intraloads to install right after this. So there's definitely some background stress with just the pace that we've been trying to build and install these things.
Probably echoing to them, if you haven't been, is stating that the hardest one was the first one. These next ones, like, maybe there's a way to quantify how much
the
easier
other 2
2 and
are
3
much
will be.
easier. There's just a much lower part count. The Gen 3 machine is so much easier to integrate. The design was already done before we started even selling them. It's just scaled up a little bit between the 500 and the 750.
Okay.
It was this Gen 2 problem. And really, we had all this work. Of course, like every engineering thing, it swelled. It was 3 times more work as we thought it would be. Now we're going to deliver, unfortunately, like 2 weeks late, which, is not the end of the world. We're still on a pretty fast timeline for this scope of project. But the challenge with that is, like, now we've kind of have accelerated production to not push our other customers building the other following 2 units.
Yeah.
And all that stress, I think, has kind of come down for me of, hey, like, I haven't been focusing on marketing nearly as much as I should be. What a stupid bug. Okay, got it.
It looks like you got it.
I did.
To the timeline slip, where I was going to go earlier, something that I've seen with our team, kind of layering in that small business flight plan, having your 3 priorities in your weekly meeting,
Yep.
along with the OKRs that we've kind of talked about. So our team's been using those. And one thing from that book that's been really powerful is committed dates. So there's a lot of things that have to get done, and there's a few things that have to get done on certain dates.
Right.
So those things our team is starting to watch on kind of like a milestone Gantt. Some of it they just write right on the whiteboard so everybody sees it every day when they walk in.
Yep.
And then with those committed dates, there's a critical path in your Gantt. Now, this might be maybe not going to work for you, but what they've been doing is they've been noting the start date next to the date that's due.
That's
Because
smart. Yeah.
something that continuously happens is this like, oh my gosh, that's a month and a half out. I don't even have to worry about that. That's a month and a half into the future. The issue is it takes 4 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
And so showing them that like the Gantt says you need to start this date, and if you don't start this date, we are projecting we will be behind schedule.
Yep.
That was one of our team members brought that up. Was like, oh my gosh, yeah, we've got to start showing that to the team members of like, we must start these. And that's been what we've started seeing as momentum. Now I've been seeing the opposite on our Gants where everything was going and getting
Right. Yeah.
pushed. Since we leveled them out and did everything based on this start and finish date, stuff's been getting pulled. Oops, hit the mic. Stuff's been getting pulled forward, just like this customer
Right.
proof of concept. Granted, that was only like 4 days, but that's amazing momentum to start seeing on our team.
I think a lot of that's our challenge because we moved, when our headcount shrunk, we realized we had a lot of systems that like just sucked. And I kind of reshaped our organization to be kind of entirely flat. I tried to reshape our culture to, no one's afraid of, what anybody says. I don't want people reading into my words. I think that's a common thing that happens with, people's bosses. And also to really encourage people to bring up problems and then show them they're going to get solved. And with all of that, where was I going? Usually I don't forget my train of thought. What were we talking about?
A start and end date on Gans.
Oh, yeah. So, in simplifying all those systems, I basically said, okay, screw it. The Gantt chart stuff isn't working. We're going to go to sticky notes. And that's been great. And everyone knows what they need to do today. But it's been really bad in terms of trying to manage long-term projects. And I think, that start, like knowing when we need to start has been the issue. And that, I think that's where we've been failing. And ultimately we do need to clean up and simplify our Gantt chart system and start using that maybe in conjunction with, a daily task board.
Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. The other thing, like, are you starting to see any consistency on your incoming orders now? Or like if you look at just a month, what that kind of looks like? Is there a way to try and do some forecasting so it's less of a fire drill? We just are planning for certain things that are coming up that are just going to come up because you're going to start hitting that cadence on sales. You're going to start building a structure. Is there a way to make that an aspirational goal?
Like the business is, at the point where there's lots and lots of reorders because luckily people like our products.
Nice.
And there's kind of this passive, purchasing that happens. And annoyingly, we have a lot of customers who like want to order by PO or have to have a custom quote, even they could buy it on the Shopify store. But nevertheless, those things are really handled. I think about a month and a half ago, I talked a lot about redoing our assembly area after our assembly guy gave it his 2 weeks. We let him work the 2 weeks because we were trying to find a replacement. And then I tried to assemble stuff and I saw how broken that was. Where the parts was just a mess. Totally overhauled that entire section to where it's very easy to build things. There's Kanban polls for almost all of our part numbers. And one of the big changes I actually kind of forced on everybody that I think initially the team didn't like was that we're not going to build quantities to just sit here that haven't been ordered. And kind of the lean approach, right? So like, there's going to be parts and we're going to produce them on Kanban quantities, but we're not just going to build tumble blast baskets or M-code air kits because someone might order it. And that actually has been huge for us because we're not wasting time on these random things. And if we ever do get through that backlog of orders, I mean, we pretty much always get through it, right? We almost always.
Yeah, it's just a new backlog by the time you get through the old one.
But we can shift then to work on improvements and not just build more M-code air kits. So that has kind of been handled already for our like product basis. And I think is working really well. And I'm really actually surprised how fast that happened. And the team really pulled together there.
Having that time rather than, like you said, building inventory, which just is waste. It's
Yeah.
it's using up your cash versus becoming more efficient. So when the next wave comes in, you can just execute quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is liberating once you start seeing that.
Yeah.
It is tough to train your
We are
mind
like
for
well
that.
into shop improvements too.
Yeah. Oh, we've moved
Yeah.
into that. We
Yeah.
transitioned without even saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you had
Sorry,
more
I'll let you
R&D.
keep going.
I was done with R&D, so
No, with whatever you were saying. I interrupted you.
it was more or less just shop improvements in general,
Okay.
utilizing that time rather than building inventory or, it's always an
Right.
idea to make new products, but you need to clean and consolidate. And that's kind of been the same wave we've seen on our team. We've had the last couple months because we don't have another big project starting. We've got this T&M work. We've got the couple projects that we're cleaning out, but we haven't had a time to clean and consolidate since COVID.
Yep.
It's been a growth back-to-back projects since COVID. So 2020 has been like, since then, it's just been like no real organization and our efficiency is going up and it's really
Right.
liberating. So I'm echoing what you're saying. I really like the lulls for that opportunity.
Yeah. And our new assembly guy has been awesome. That's been a great change as well. I'm also forcing myself to just be patient and take the pain of not having someone there. It's better to have a hole than an asshole is a common business phrase. Um, I think one thing that really got to me, I read the Lean book, your recommendation. I read the Toyota Way, and I just looked around, and especially with me kind of calming down and like we talked about, a couple weeks ago, me not having to feel special and invent something constantly. I've just been addicted to like cleaning up the shop floor, and just I think especially with me having to do stuff, the Toyota Way, going to the Gemba, and having to experience the pains. It led to me like, okay, today I'm putting a workstation for every single CNC machine at the machine because I'm not running to my office to post out another cam thing. And okay, today I'm standardizing the tooling list on this machine because God forbid, like I'm not changing out tools 20 times again.
Oh no.
And like the other day, we had to make this part, and I just had to make it on the gantry mill, which is in the other shop, because it was too big. And then going back and forth, and I'm like, having two facilities sucks. Like we got to get rid of the second facility. And I
Are
look
you even
around.
using the gantry mill if you're selling it?
Well, the big thing, it was just faster that day because the VF2 we'd have to take off the fourth axis, right? So it was just a little bit of and we also had a kind of a mid-process turnkey setup on it that I didn't want to break down. So
Okay.
it was a matter of convenience. If we were properly staffed, and everything was there, that entire project would be done by now, so the machine would be clear, right?
Get it.
And I'm also trying to force myself just to be disciplined and get rid of stuff. I don't know if you've seen our Instagram, but just like putting stuff.
I've really been enjoying it. For people that don't watch your stories, you should start watching his stories because the shop is looking much better, Michael.
Yeah, and it hasn't even been updated in a long time. Like the assembly area, oh my God, it's so night and day. It's so much more space efficient. The things that need to happen that are big, like we need to sell a gantry mill. And by the way, this one sucks because that machine, it's depreciated like 120 grand, and I paid 225 for it, right? And this was like, I don't know, 3 years ago. And like taking that pain as a business owner of like, oh, I don't lose money till I sell it. It's that fallacy, but
That's
taking that pain of just saying, screw it. Like I'm going to sell the machine because we don't need it. It's hurting us. Like the space is more important and we need to get out of that building. Those are the kind of disciplined, hard decisions that I'm like working on making.
You already made that decision with the stainless and aluminum manifolds. The issue is the number is bigger, and the number
Yeah.
delta shouldn't impact you from making the right decision. So
Yeah.
I think you're looking at it correctly, and you know how
And
to do
like
it.
maybe the impact is like I hold on a little longer, right? Like maybe I don't take an offer of 110 on the machine. I wait for an offer of 120. But it definitely shouldn't be like where I think my head kept going back to like, what if I just kept it? And even going on to that point, like you would encourage me to get rid of the metal 3D printer, and I think it's going to take me a little bit to let go, but like at some point I need to. And like right now, I'm at least the way I'm justifying it is like it's a way to like show, hey, like we can build a complex robotic system and it's cool and I
Yeah.
like it and we have room for it. But yeah, like the day's gonna come where that needs to go too.
Mhm. Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
we still have a bunch of stuff for sale. If you want a gantry mill, you want a laser welder. Um,
laser welder. What'd you have for a
yeah,
laser
we
welder?
bought a laser welder because we used to do all these weird projects, right, when we were in consulting.
Hmm.
And I made the mistake so many business owners make early on of like, I'm not gonna pay any taxes this year. I'm gonna buy a bunch of stupid shit. So what did I do? I spent 30 grand on a laser welder that we used like 20 times. And there's a lot of those stories for me that have just become kind of this accumulation of junk and stuff to maintain, and
What
it
what
just
thing?
needs to be fixed.
So this is actually the reason I'm asking is I have a potential automation project that requires a
Hmm.
laser welder.
Yeah,
Can
it's a nice IPG light weld.
can
Um,
you send me a link to that after this?
yeah.
Because the customers, they might not be able to automate it unless we can figure out a way to shave some dollars out. So shaving dollars
Oh,
out, yeah,
it's like built to be on a robot.
yes,
Um,
but used
yeah,
machines would be the way we'd get it down
yeah,
for them, and this customer would absolutely love it. So, but
yeah.
hit me up after this.
And it's got like 100 hours on it, like
Perfect.
because I just bought so much stuff and just not used it, like and now like I used to think, oh, it's cool, I have this toy, and now I'm like, it's just like it's just a weight. I have too much stuff, and I need to get rid of the stuff, and I need to consolidate, and I need to be efficient. And I think my life can be a lot simpler.
Have you started doing this at home, like beyond just the plane and everything?
Well, not quite yet. I think I still have. Maybe I'm still complicating things like, we're really into scuba and I bought like this vintage like double hose scuba regulator because I can't stand the sound of the bubbles. And I still see myself complicating my life needlessly. But it's not as bad as it used to be.
Yeah, I'm just. It's always fun when it starts trickling into other areas beyond just work.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna put a note, message Matt about laser welder.
yes, please do. It's not a for sure close, but we shall see.
It never is.
Yeah. Um, I guess other company-wide improvements, kind of building on those Gants like we were talking about. We're continuing to get, like we had done the budgets at the beginning of the year for giving departments budgets. So R&D budgets to shop budget for tools. Something that we started with was just the budgets around that and then the Gantt charts that we wanted. What we're trying to do now is kind of what you're seeing in the sales and marketing is me constantly needing engineering support. The issue is we don't ever know how much I need and when because
Yeah.
of how many projects we're going to bid. Like one week might be, I've got to bid this really custom assembly machine. The next one is like, we got to do 3 palletizers. I can do
Hmm.
like 6 palletizers in the time that it takes to do half of a really complex assembly machine for like bidding it. And it's like those deltas are really tough on trying to figure out how we flatten that out on sales and marketing to make sure I always have the constant
Yeah.
capacity. And that's been a pain there.
Like you're describing the classic like service business dilemma. And you always get like oh, why are your prices so expensive or whatever, especially from like, less qualified customers. And it's always that undulation of like, well, you have, because the projects are temporary and because, as a consultant, you're the first variable expense that gets cut, especially if you're T&M.
Hmm.
Then, you got to have the higher prices to cover overhead and payroll. And when there's not a project there, um, I wish I had a good answer. Our answer was just to mostly get out of T&M work because
It's
it's hard to scale.
I think you're thinking of it actually executing the work. It's
Hmm.
bidding the work.
Oh,
So it's me needing engineers to support the sales
I see.
side. So literally just putting the proposals together.
But
Everything
there's
that I'm
that
talking.
variability on the sales side.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
pretty high delta. Like there was a period like I was using 2 mechanical engineers full time and then still pulling some software in like for a
As long
month.
as you have the staff there, I think that like at least for us, like the expectation that our staff has and the way I hire employees, I make sure they're flexible enough to do different things at different times. And I I think at like the scale that either of us have, like the only real option, um, practically speaking, like you could potentially like get a sales guy who has an engineering background, but I think the best option is to pull that staff as needed and have some sort of system where it's not too disruptive to the rest of the business.
And that's what like the disruption part is what we're trying to figure out because we
Yeah.
have the committed dates like we talk about. And if say somebody has a project with a committed date, and I'm describing a challenge we've had over the last couple of weeks here, we
Hmm.
need XYZ mechanical engineer to come in and do that because he's the best person to execute that in general. Or the other mechanical engineers could be the other case. They're needed on another project. Either way, I need sales support. So
What if
it's
there's a
either,
buffer? So like I don't want to encourage you to like lying to your staff, but what if you like just made that commitment date like 2 days earlier? And you still have to kind of have the enforcement and consequences if the enforcement dates or if the
yeah.
commitment dates are passed. But that gives you the flexibility to say, hey, I'm pulling you. It's okay. I'm giving you an extra day. Um,
So I'm looking at it from a different lens because I don't want to run my Gants that way. I want my team to run the Gants. So there's no
okay.
false buffers.
Yeah.
There's a culture that I've been working to build that the team leads and the team are running the Gants. They know the committed dates. They know the buffers that are baked into them. And there's no moving committed dates. There's no
Okay.
lying to ourselves
Yeah.
or
So
anybody on the
like if
team.
that's your line in the sand, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know what to do there.
That's been
Yeah.
something we've been like, it's like the challenge is, all right, do we just make a fake Gantt, let's say, that always has a question mark on engineering hours they get pulled from
Right.
each department? And then we level that out kind of like the Toyota way over the entire year. So we just know that we never can take those hours for engineering. Those always have to be allocated to sales. And then if I'm more than that, it just takes longer to get it done. And if I'm constantly asking for more, then we staff. It's kind of been the way that we've
Right.
been
Yeah.
discussing doing it as a team.
I think having the hours there makes sense, but I would almost view it as like if you're not utilizing them, like having the hours booked out for yourself, like for sales. And then if you're not utilizing them, you can give those hours back,
Mhm.
right? But just not the other way around. Like the like to where the onus is on you to give those hours back in the engineering team. And if you're running your GANs that way, I think the benefit is that hopefully, if the staff now has more hours than they believe they did, that they can then pull the Gantt chart forward as opposed
Exactly.
to backwards.
Okay. That's kind of where we've been leaning towards. I was just wanting to echo it through
Yeah.
and see if you had any ideas. So I think we'll probably continue to lean into that. It's more or less just the little bit of cultural shift to always like, hey, we've got these unallocated hours, but
Yeah.
they're technically allocated for what we don't know is coming.
Yeah. All right. I do got to get out of here by 1:20.
Okay.
So do you want to roll into the accountability?
Yeah,
What did you
I
call it
guess.
again?
Well, we've been trying to since the Google. Well, we've been Googling the something personal.
Yep.
Just weren't really sticking for us, and something to make us a little more unique. I think what we kind of discussed was this kind of being a little bit of an accountability call. So giving each other challenges for those that are listening to this portion of it. So for me, I guess we should go over what our challenges last week. You told me to, because LinkedIn's been one thing where we've been running ads. My posting dropped off because I was so focused on sales.
Yep.
It's been one of those things where it's just like, I don't mind doing some LinkedIn stuff. It's just sometimes it's one of the last things that I get
I
to,
know
and it's
it
one of
is
the
for me too.
first things that I cut. So you challenged me to not skip that. So since you made that challenge, I've been posting at least one time a week. The way that I made that happen is I built a ChatGPT agent to assist me with that.
Yep.
That does the initial like 50% for me, and then I have to finish them out and create posts. So that's been working really well. I've actually been posting about the podcast again on LinkedIn, which is good. So thank
That's
you for
good.
that. That's been done, and actually have to probably write another one today, hopefully.
Yep. And from last week, my accountability item, which I did not fully complete, so get on me about that, was to overhaul our turnkey process, to update the graphic and put it onto our homepage. That all happened. Actually, I sent you the thing. I gave yours as an example to our Shopify guy. He copied it exactly. Every icon, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, no, like use our colors, use our fonts. Anyways,
It's awesome.
had to have him update that, which
I
was
mean,
a
I could have
process.
given you that for free.
Yeah. But I will say, like, one thing I didn't like about yours is that it doesn't work well dynamically on mobile. Because when it shrinks down, it's just a picture. That was
Yeah.
the one gripe I had and why we built it from the ground up. And then kind of fix the formatting. But I do need to get that onto the homepage. So that will be something to check in with me next week. And
Sounds
the
good.
other thing I think to check in with me next week on is that we get a newsletter out. I think I just haven't been on top of that enough. And for us, like we had the business kind of evolved from like grippers and vices, and then we came out with kind of the first game changer, which was our automation module, which really made the turnkeys much easier to close and much easier to service. And then the next game changer was intraload. And now that intraload is such a significant portion of our revenue, especially over such a short timeline, like I got to keep pushing there, because it's the easiest way to grow the business. The margins are there to support it. It's just like I need to be consistent with the newsletters.
Discipline.
Yeah. So
Sounds
for
good.
me, newsletter, and to actually do the turnkey thing.
Okay.
The turnkey
Anything stand
process.
out that you want me to do based on the call?
Well, like, not really. I think generally speaking, like, because develop has just known what it's been doing longer, and you just have more experience. Like, I think you're more in the polish stage, right? And there's a lot more I have to fix that's a little more drastic. Like, so I'll defer to you on what you want me to hold you accountable to.
What needs to get done next week? Maybe not any changes or anything. I have a bunch of automate leads that need to be engaged with on a personal level, because that's one thing I really like doing. While we automated a lot with ChatGPT, there's a personal level that goes into buying $1 million, multi-million-dollar machine. Maybe it's $250,000, depending upon what it is. There is a relationship that goes with buying from develop, and I don't want that to be lost. So I think the big thing is to make sure that I don't lean too far into
You got to
the AI
quantify
and
it
lose
though.
that.
It's like,
I know.
okay, I'm
So
gonna reach out to.
all 4 and 5 stars will have
Okay.
a personalized email from me or somebody on the team.
I'm
So
writing it
the
down.
personalized from the team will be the team members that talk to him at the show, and then I'll be brought in to take the sales from there. That's really what needs to get done next week, and somehow I need to figure out how to also continuously engage with the active deals, so
Yep.
those don't fall off too, because I've got a list of those that I really need to engage with next week. That's really going to be my week.
Yeah, I need to get better about HubSpot tasks, and I wonder if that's one thing, like, kind of leveraging like Chat GPT or something else as almost a assistant, the way that Fixture does. Might be a useful place for me to explore. Of like, hey, you said you would do this thing. You need to do this thing.
You can do accountability things or tasks where you just type it in. I've really been enjoying building out somewhat personalized agents for specific tasks, like for our accounting tasks. I don't know if you watch the show Suits, but I built out a Donna for sending out emails to like, hey, I need you to pay this invoice, or this invoice is late, or this is our process. Just like it has a little bit of a personality to it then, and then it's just team develop is what I put on there, even though that agent built it. It just sounds better than
AI agent.
cold Matt writing something. Hey, did you pay your bill yet? Why not?
Yeah. Cool.
So, yeah, I think that sounds good. Good wrap. We can go off recording and.
Yeah. Well, to pause, please like, share, subscribe to your podcast player of choice, and if you don't mind, give us a 5-star review. Thank you so much for listening to Matt and I's conversation this week on the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. If you like the podcast, please share it with a friend or give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'll be back next week to continue sharing our respective journeys in life, business, and industrial automation. Thanks so much.